digital enterprise is undergoing a profound transformation driven by the strategic integration of modern cloud platforms, resilient architectural patterns, and the groundbreaking capabilities of agentic AI. In fact, IDC says an unprecedented surge in agentic AI spending that's behind the expected 32% growth in overall AI spending to an incredible $1.3 trillion US worldwide by 2029. Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Malone. I'm a senior contributing editor working with CIO Marketing Services. And welcome to this thought leadership session brought to you by Cognizant and featuring Microsoft. Our speakers will explore how forward thinking organizations are not just adapting, but leading by redefining their engineering core, leveraging the combined power of advanced platforms and cloud ecosystems. In this discussion, you'll hear from our panel of experts on revolutionizing the software development lifecycle with agentic AI, optimizing your operations for agility with agentic AI, and modernizing the digital core with agentic AI, and much more. It's got a great session lined up, so let's meet our speakers right away. First up, let's say hello to Tia Eady, who's the Vice President and Global Head of Architecture and Studio Innovation with Cognizant. Tia, welcome. Tell us a little bit about your work at Cognizant.
Hey, Jim. Hey, everyone. How are you? Happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I started my career at Digital Equipment Corporation, so I guess I'm dating myself there in the network room and pulling down ceilings and laying cables. So that's, we've come a long way from there. Currently lead our global architecture team. So we have domain architecture, technical architecture, cloud, as well as applications. And then also, of course, ensure that the delivery is top notch. And we're really working with our clients as consultants.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Tia. Delighted you could be with us, and we're looking forward to our conversation today. Now let's say hello to Eve Psalti, who's the Senior Director for Microsoft Artificial Intelligence. Hi, Eve. Welcome. Thanks so much for being with us. Tell us a little bit about your role at Microsoft.
Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for inviting me, and it's great to share the stage and the panel with Tia. I've been in the Azure AI engineering team for about a little bit over 4 years, but in the AI space for the 10 plus years. My team is the AI applied engineering team, which means that, we're kind of like a linchpin between product development and early customer adoption. So we see kind of like, both the making of AI and how AI is used in the real world.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Eve. Certainly exciting times for AI. We're really happy that you could be with us as well. Quick note before we start our conversation, check out the resources list on your player. You'll find lots of great assets from our sponsors there that you can download to share with clients and prospects, et cetera, and do a really deep dive on our discussion today. So we do recommend you check that out. You'll also discover how to get in touch with our sponsors via that resource list. So do take advantage of that. And finally, a big thanks to our sponsors, Cognizant and Microsoft, for making today's event possible. Let's start just with a basic definition of agentic AI. How do you, in your respective teams, how do you define agentic AI?
So when you think about agentic AI, or just AI in general, it's not new, right? It's something that we've been doing for a very long time, whether it's just doing basic automation and stringing things together. What we did not have was a way to really pull together and address complex problems in complex sequential situations. So that's what agentic AI, and that is what it addresses, right? So really, it's a way to bring autonomous agents together who can work independently and really execute independently with minimal human input, right? And so really you can chain these agents together to really address some orchestration and critical complex situations that we weren't able to do 10, 15 years ago.
I very much agree with what Tia is saying. Just to augment that as well from our point of view, I think the reason why we see agentic AI really on the rise now, the past kind of like 12, 18 months, is because we have done such a good job, having kind of like a plethora and a set of really strong and very well evolved and powerful large language models, which are kind of like the brain of an AI agent, if you will. And I think for me also, an agent is system that can learn, kind of like it teaches itself by looking at like tons of information, identifying patterns, things that, LLMs now can do really, really well. But they can also reason, so they can identify an anomaly, they can diagnose an issue, and they can take an action. This is really, really critical, because now we're taking the LLM to the next level. They can create a form, they can fill out a form, they can create a ticket, they can write an email, they can book a flight. And this is how we see kind of like augmenting the experience on the human side.
Yeah. And that's huge, right? It's huge and it's scary because what is it learning? Right? Like, where is it learning? What is it learning from? But you're right. The learning part and self-augmenting is really the key too. Thank you, Eve.
One of the most important emerging use cases for agentic AI is software development, and we're here to talk about that today. So let's explore agentic AI's role, that is, in software development. And let's start with you, Eve. What's important to highlight here when we think about agentic AI and the software development lifecycle?
Yeah, I mean, I think what a lot of companies need to kind of like pay attention as they are looking to evaluate and introduce AI agents into the workflow. I would start with a business need first. I see a lot of customers coming up with a lot of different use cases, which is great. The way to prioritize this, which is the right one to become an agent, is which one is kind of like more resource heavy, which one is more expensive, which one is like, more manual. So having kind of like a strong business goal and a business strategy of what you're trying to automate, why, which area of the business, it's really, really key. The second piece is making sure that you have a technology strategy and a strong vision. And I think that's why I think, the services that TS team provides are really, really key. You need to make sure that you have your data estate in a good condition, that you have the right security, the right kind of like, foundations in place. You also need to have a responsible AI point of view, a vision around that,
Mhm.
around privacy, data access. And the last two pieces actually are more kind of like around this digital transformation rather than the tech itself. Because whenever we're introducing a new technology, in this case, which is groundbreaking, we need to reevaluate the organizational culture, the organizational processes. We can't keep doing the same thing with new tools. We have to like rethink how the organization should be structured and how it should operate. So there is a change management that needs to be part of this. And of course, as you introduce now AI agents together with your apps, together with a lot of the different processes that you have, you need to make sure that you have the right governance to monitor, to oversight, and to provide the right kind of like management, if you will.
And Tia, what about from the Cognizant perspective? What's important when we think about agentic AI and its role in software development?
Well, all of the things Eve said, right? All of the things plus, 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 I think is really critical. Um, from my perspective and from cognitive perspective, it's really changing the way that we're working, right? And the way that we engage with our clients. Um, if we think back, just probably 4 or 5 years ago, it was really about skills augmentation. Do you have this particular skill set? Whether it's, SRE, SDET, et cetera, right? It was really focused on that. Now we look at it from a holistic perspective. How can we help you get to your goals, achieve your goals that you've talked about from a business perspective easier, right? And so we've really shifted to bringing in plug and play platforms, right, to help our clients navigate the complexities within their own environment, navigate the complexities in the tooling ecosystem that are coming up. We have the hyperscalers, we have the product vendors. Our clients are not sure which way to go, right? And how to really address some of the concerns that they have, and how do we now get an ROI without draining it with time, resources, trying to figure it out, right? That's really a big challenge for them. So how do we help them using our platforms, moving in to help take apart all of the complexities and move them into really adoption, right? And like Eve said, we don't want to automate and use agents for what you're doing today. How can we do it better? And so it's removing all of the other distractions to now focus on that.
Excellent. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Tia, in preparing for our session today, one of the terms that came up was the idea of an engineering centric model. So I wanted to ask you if you could unpack that a little bit for our viewers. What does it mean, and why is it important?
Again, there's the software development lifecycle. There's now the agentic development lifecycle, and how we actually look at it from end to end in developing. When we look at how do we move into adoption and move into this, it's about bringing our what I talked about, our platforms called Flowsource, Neuro AI engineering, and putting those things in place to now reverse engineer using, BRE tools, et cetera, and then forward engineering. Once we understand and unpack the cobalt, the cobalt applications or the on-site applications, how do we now do that? And then we show them what pieces are a part of their applications today, and then what do we want to carry forward? And then we want to do that in the most efficient way, right? We want to do that in the most modular way using cloud and other technologies where we're building on a more modular situation and platform. So those things I think are really key, and it changes the way that where we had to have everything in one place, now it's very distributed, right? We talked about LLMs. You've talked about LLMs. We now talk about SLMs, right? To keeping that information inside your company, because that's another risk, right? So now when you're using these public LLMs, you're using, AI, and, responsible AI is really key. But how do we now make sure we keep our competitive advantage, right? We're using this technology, but we want to make sure that our competitors are not able to see what we're doing, right? And so we really need to make sure we're locking that in, and our tools build those guidelines in and build those guardrails in, and ensure that from a security perspective, it's locked down.
Excellent. Well, one of the things that comes up often when we talk about these technologies and at the high level, we still have to make these work, and that brings infrastructure into the question. And
Mhm.
Eve, I wanted to ask you about that, about infrastructure. How can IT leaders assure that their infrastructure is ready for this transformation? And this is a question that comes up not just with agentic AI, but with AI in general. So that infrastructure preparedness, how can they assure that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think this is a question also from the IT department to kind of like evaluate what they need to buy, what they need to extend, and what they need to build. A lot of times, I think organizations take on really large, elaborate projects. I think a lot of times I see teams wanting to build their own LLMs, which is like a huge undertaking. So I think, you need to like step back, identify kind of like, what the use cases, what the scenarios, what you're trying again to do from a business goal standpoint, and see kind of like what platforms, what services are already out there, because it's going to help you go to market faster with less overhead if you are going to extend or kind of like, buy tools, pieces of a platform or services. And there is always kind of like a way that you can fine tune things, you can customize things, so you can, I mean, from our standpoint, we provide the platform and the tools. If you have the right kind of like goal in mind, then you can take these tools, whether it's the in no code, low code platform with the Copilot Studio or the Microsoft 365 Copilot, so that you can empower your citizen developers or your business users to kind of like, automate parts of the work that they do. all the way into kind of like a more pro code developer platform, like it's the Azure AI Foundry. We provide the tools so that people can really extend what they build. They can customize, they can infuse these tools with their own proprietary information, with their special sauce, if you will, whether it's their product catalog or their customer insights or market trends or whatever it is, to kind of further fine tune, what they are getting. And I think this is kind of they need to have that vision in place before they continue.
So one of the things that you brought up that really jumped at me was what do we bring to the table? Like what the customers are struggling with, right? So we have prompt libraries, for example, and we've built several prompt libraries that work great with the Copilot, all of that together, and that customizes the way that they prompt, and it also allows for it to be adopted. So then you get the repeatable responses that you want. You get the repeatable code, regardless of where it's being developed, whether it's here in the US or in India or down in, Latin America or Lithuania. And you have these teams distributed and you can ensure that the code is the same, right? And
Mhm.
in particular areas, you ensure that the guardrails that are important for you and security components or just coding excerpts are the same. Um, that's how you bring those two together. So when we talk about our partnership in a bit, you'll see this come into action, how those things work together real seamlessly.
We're chatting with Eve Psalti with Microsoft, Tia Eady with Cognizant. Um, we've talked about the growth in agentic AI, the promise of agentic AI, some of the barriers and some of the
Mhm.
other important points. But today, I mean, right now, I want to focus in on that Cognizant Microsoft partnership, how you're approaching the agentic AI kind of transformation and software development, and talk a little bit too about the adoption and implementation. Let's start with you, Tia, that the partnership.
So I wrote down some things so I could make sure I have all of the data correct. So our partnership, Cognizant's partnership, is deeply aligned with Microsoft's ecosystem, leveraging Azure AI Copilot, Azure AI Foundry to deliver scalable, secure, industry-specific solutions. The approach is built on 4 pillars, and I wanted to make sure I had the pillars correctly, so that's why I wrote this down and made sure I had it. Uh, from a Copilot-centric transformation, which is also in our product, our platform, Flowsource as well, we have deployed over 24,000 Microsoft 365 Copilot seats and developed custom Copilots, which we talked a little bit about, in industries for Copilot Studio, and OpenAIF, right, which is the Foundry. The second pillar is CO Azure AI Foundry, which is central to our pro-code AI development strategy, right? Cognizant's Foundry-based delivery model enables a rapid rollout of enterprise-grade copilots, which we have so many clients that are using them that we're rolling those out from a delivery perspective, and fixed timelines with reducing costs up to 80%, right? So this is really allowing us to go to market quicker and saving our clients money, which we just talked about. The third is agentic AI and autonomous workflows, pioneering a shift from generational autonomous AI through agent-based architectures and archetypes. We talked architectures, my bread and butter, right? So that's my wheelhouse. And then responsible AI and governance, which we talked about a few times, which is to me core. I mean, it really principles and fosters trust and respect for people and the environment throughout the entire AI lifecycle, and from acquisition to design to development and monitoring and decommissioning of AI systems. So, as you could see, we've tightly coupled not only from a business alignment and strategy alignment, but also from a platform perspective and how do we use the different products together.
I think that's very well said, Tia. And I think you covered everything. The one thing that I would bring in is that, from our standpoint, our commitment is to continue really evolving and providing the more cutting edge, powerful AI tools and cloud foundation. What I really appreciate for the Cognizant team is that, your team brings deep industry expertise. So it kind of like brings to life the platform and the tools that we provide on our end. Also, your commitment to these cutting edge technologies. You were an early adopter with Gen AI, with Agentic AI, and this is what we need from our partners. And the fact that you are able to kind of like build on this platform to bring your integration and domain expert services so that we can collectively support global enterprises and we can help them to create and extend their business value.
No, amazing. We do amazing things, and that's our commitment. If you heard Ravi this week talk about our commitment, really it's about shifting from, being the one who just delivers talent to really helping our clients transition to AI and then build on it, right? I think he called us AI builders.
Yeah.
So there you go.
We have just a few minutes left in our session for today, but before we go, I want to give our panelists a chance to answer one more question, and that's kind of the future-looking question. And I want to start with you, Eve. Talk about how you would reimagine a world where agentic AI is just part of life, part of what we do. Agentic AI is leveraged in some of the ways that we've talked about today. What do you see the world looking like under that scenario?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not a futurist, so I can't really predict the future. And I think to some extent we already live in it. But I definitely see kind of like how the future of agentic AI is is more about kind of like really thoughtfully and meaningfully integrating agentic services into the way we work and the way that we live. It doesn't take the human out of the loop. I think that's a common misconception that I hear. I think like, the humans still have the critical thinking, the communication skills, the creativity skills to supervise the outcomes and create the vision and the condition for these agents to operate. But I can envision kind of like, a world where we coexist and we help each other. We outsource a lot of these kind of like more mundane tasks into agents. We all have to live and work in complex industrial and IT environments, and having kind of like a hybrid set of teams with humans and agents being able to diagnose problems, fix issues, kind of like this whole self healing that we see that it's in its early stages right now. We'll see this that I mean we will be able to outsource a lot of the things that we do to agents, and we'll be able to kind of like create that oversight. Both at the work and environment, but also in a in a personal set of scenarios. I can see how agents will become kind of like our hyper personalized life assistants where they'll be able to organize our calendars and book trips for our families and order kind of like take out food and or kind of like create recipes based on what we have on our fridge. And so I think this will become much more intelligent, self-healing, self-learning, to help us be a little bit more productive so that we can focus on the things that we do best, which is creating and using our critical thinking for more complex decisions.
Thanks so much, Eve. Tia, your vision for the future with agentic AI.
I'm gonna align with Eve in a simpler world, right? Like to have some of the things taken off of our plate and someone to come read my email and create some actions and do them. But I also wanted to add, I think this is going to provide a huge opportunity for the newer talent, right? The newer talent, the recent graduates. I have a sophomore in college, right? That can now come into the market where they were really concerned about whether or not they would have positions, right? And something to do when they graduated. Now they are digital native, right? They've grown up in an age where this is all that they know. And now they have the experience of how do I live and what can I now use the technology to help me live better. And so I know that we are really looking at for next year, bringing a lot of new talent across the world in recent graduates, Gen Zs, et cetera, that we can use to help them grow within the business setting and using their knowledge to critically think, look at the world, how they look at it, and now build systems that we can use AI with to now bring those things to fruition. So I'm looking forward to really being able to infuse the industry with new talent, new thoughts, organically with the way that they live.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Tia. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of our time for this session. And what a great session it's been. We learned so much about Agentic AI, the future, the Microsoft Cognizant partnership, how it can help here as well. But we are at the end of our time. So a big thanks to our speakers, Eve Psalti with Microsoft, Tia Eady with Cognizant. Thanks so much for your expertise and insights. Of course, a big thanks to everyone who tuned in, and thanks to our sponsors as well. Now, before we go, just a quick reminder for viewers, check out that resources list. There you'll find lots of great assets that will help enrich your experience here today. Do a deep dive on this topic. You'll also discover how to get in touch with our sponsors, Cognizant and Microsoft, to really find out how that partnership can help you on your agentic AI journey. So we do encourage you, take advantage of that as well. And with that, for Cognizant and Microsoft and CIO, this is Jim Malone saying, thanks everyone for tuning in.